So I'll call the city council meeting to order. Everybody stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America.
United States of America.
To the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and
justice for all.
Clerk, take the roll.
Mayor O'Connor,
Here.
Morissette,
Here.
Alms,
Here.
DeZiel,
Here.
Weber,
Here.
Atkins Hoggett,
Here.
and Hall.
Here.
All right, Bill, you're up.
All right, thanks. I wanted to obviously thank everybody for being here tonight. I do want to just take a quick aside here that I'm, a city council president. I'm presiding over the first part, at least, of the meeting, and I retain the right to vote as we go here. With that, looks like we are up for presentation from Wisconsin Department of Transportation regarding upcoming maintenance project at I-94 Carmichael Road interchange. Is somebody here from the DOT? Looks like somebody's trying to talk.
If I might for just a second, I just wanted to introduce Stephanie Miner. She works for the Wisconsin DOT out of the Eau Claire office, and she's going to just give some information on this upcoming DOT maintenance project on the I-94 Carmichael Road bridge and approaches. So just want to pass it over to Stephanie. Hopefully we can hear you now. We can't hear you yet.
Can't hear you. It looks like you're on mute or off of mute, but.
Here we go. How about now?
There we go.
Okay. I don't use the headset very often because I don't have as many meetings as most people. So as Dean said, my name's Stephanie Miner and I work for the DOT, and I'm currently designing the rehab project on the Carmichael Road Bridge over 94. And this project will take care of just the bridge. The bridge is 30 years old at this time, and it's showing some signs of deterioration. The joints are one of the major spots that are deteriorating. So that is one of the things we plan to replace. So we plan to take the joints out. Then we will be replacing the approach slabs that lead up to the bridge on both sides. We will be painting the railing along the west side of the structure because that's fairly rusty. And along with the expansion joints that we will be replacing, we'll have to remove portions of the sidewalk and the barrier wall and the median curb kind of safety island as well. That stuff will get replaced with that because it needs to be removed in order to get them joints out. We will also be repairing any deterioration on the abutment. So on the north and the south abutments, if you drive through there either on 94 or on Carmichael, you could probably see some of the signs of deterioration. So we plan to just patch some of that up, give it a little more life. And we also will be leveling the sign structure that's on the northbound lanes on the south side of the structure, because it does have a slight tilt to it. It's nothing that you can probably notice with the naked eye, but it's something that we'll address just so it stays where it's supposed to be. Construction is set for 2022 as of right now. As we know, things do change. As far as traffic impacts go, so this was a struggle for a traffic unit to come up with the best way to go about getting this project done, because it's something that needs to be done, but you all know the traffic through that section is insane. There is a large amount of traffic. So what we're proposing is have 2 lanes of traffic closed in both directions for the length of the project. This will expedite the project and it'll save money. It will also limit the overall impact to traffic. It'll cut that down to a much shorter time period. And I think with the cost savings, it'll help. just keep this project to where it needs to be. It's a maintenance project, so we don't want to be too far out there with money wise, but it needs to get done. So we will have one lane of traffic open in both directions at all times. So by having traffic set up this way, instead of normally, like if you ever notice on the interstate, the lane closures happen at certain periods of time due to the traffic that comes through. That's what it's based off of, the volumes that are coming through. And so this we were gonna go that route and have it based off of hourly, like it'll only be night work. But because it would extend the project more than necessary, it would be just a lot more, it'd be easier and it'd be cost savings. So that's where that's at. We will have traffic signals. Those will have to be adjusted, the timing on those, but WISDOT will take care of those. And pedestrian traffic will be maintained throughout the length of the project. It'll just be whether it's shifted into one lane, protected lane to get them around, they'll have access. So that's pretty much just the basics of it. Does anybody have any questions?
Stephanie, if I could just hop in one real quick here. So I just want to make clear that this project is not the interchange rebuild project.
Correct.
That everybody knows is at least on the horizon somewhere. Just wanted to make that clear. Yeah, just wanted to throw that out before anybody asks that question. So this project essentially, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Stephanie, this project essentially gets the bridge along to that point where the interchange would get reconstructed, right?
Yes, that is correct. We're just trying to get it a little further down the road because its actual life expectancy, typically when they build the bridges, it's 75 years. So that puts this one at 2066, which is pretty, it seems surprising when you look at the condition of the bridge. So yeah, it just gets us down a little further to that point, keep things safe.
Okay, thanks.
How long do you think the project will take?
Right now, we don't have an exact amount of time, but we know that given the aspects that are in the project, it has to be done, of course, in warm months. So you're talking midsummer, possibly, and it has to be done by September. So it kind of gives you an idea. Once we get more specifics, we'll put it out on our website, or I can send it along to Dean, the information, and keep him aware of what's going on, which I'll probably end up doing anyway. But yeah, as of right now, that's where we're at with things.
How long does a project like this typically take? I mean, is it a 1 month project, 2 month project, 3 month project?
Stacy, are you on?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I'm Stacy Lambell. I'm the project manager. I think that with the work we're doing on the joints here, we're not actually putting a metal joint back in. We're kind of pouring it in. So I like Steph said, we don't have a real good number on it yet, but we're definitely looking at less than, I know this probably sounds like a lot of time, but less than 3 months. And it's a real gas right now. Sorry, I just our controlling factors are that the deck is gonna get a polymer overlay on it, and that has to be done. Generally, that has to be done 30 days after we pour the concrete. And I'm looking in to see if there's a different type of material we can use that we can eliminate that 30 days. And I would think that we would remove the traffic control during that 30 days. We wouldn't leave the lane closures up if we had to leave it. So there's a couple different stages. So with cure time on the concrete and switching traffic, I guess I'd rather tell you a longer time frame than a shorter time frame. So right now I guess I'm just gonna stay with that 3 months.
Thank you.
But I have a feeling it'll be less than that. But I just, like I said, I'd rather err on the long side than the short side.
Can you discuss the traffic control aspect? You said 2 lanes each direction. Does that mean 1 lane to go across and 1 lane to turn?
Let me see here. I have the traffic control here. So you're thinking about going northbound with those turn lanes?
Either way, yeah, you've got turn lanes on, well, I guess one is just a level access.
So we have, I know for the northbound, there is going to be, where did he put that? Let me just see here. Locate myself. I want to say he does have, our traffic engineer, he set it up so that there would be kind of like a cut-in, like a queue lane in a way, for that left turn lane onto 94, but don't quote me for sure. We're also looking at potentially having a detour for at least the people coming off of 94, just because it's gonna get congested. Let me see. So yes, he has, for northbound, he has a full lane coming through and a partial turn lane there. There's a turn lane, yep, for the ramps. And yeah, and then once you get to the intersection, which intersection is this? To the north. We're trying to limit it in between, because there's how many intersections there? There'd be 1 on the south that's really close and 2 on the north. I think we stretch out to the second one on the north as far as traffic control goes and kind of have to weave people through. But there will be access for turn lanes. I know there is restrictions on the turn lanes, turning left if you're coming off the ramp. So if you're coming off the 94 ramp, say you're heading westbound and you come up there, there will be restrictions there. And that's where we're talking about detours. Potential detours. We're looking at it the best. This one's a very tricky one just because of the logistics.
There is no good potential detour there.
No, it'd have to be
yeah.
like, oh, go ahead, Stacey.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, you go ahead.
Something we wanted to mention too is, you know, we had a couple of ideas for detours, but you know, you guys are more familiar with the traffic, and I know it's not going to be pretty. This intersection's never pretty. This one particularly, interchange. But so yeah, we'd be limiting the eastbound and westbound left turns, and encouraging a detour. So do you have any opinions on what would be the best detour routes to use for these?
As much as we could divert to the slip ramp further west.
I think we could let Miraz and Dean kind of weigh in on that maybe later. Is that okay, Stacey?
Yeah.
If we can let our staff take a look and get you some ideas?
Definitely.
That's totally fine. And I'm hoping to, regretfully, all we have right now are as-built plan sheets with red dots on them, and they're not really easy to look at. So I'm hoping that we can get some plan sheets, some talking sheets for you to look at. So
I guess the next question thing that always seems to happen, frequently happens on these projects, is how solid is that 2022 date?
Stacey, do you have an idea on that? You're more in that scheduling part of it.
Do you know if this was an advanceable date or not? Just a second.
That I don't know.
I think more about putting it off rather than advancing it.
Well,
yeah, that's a good question, Jim. I actually agree with you. Where did this come from all of a sudden?
it's because of the deterioration on the bridge.
We've never heard anything about it.
Well, if you look at the bridge right now, there's asphalt patches on the deck.
Mm-hmm.
It's looking pretty rough. And those are just a maintenance headache.
Are you aware of our request for the other bridge on 11th Street that we've been working on, talking about for the last 5 years?
Yeah. 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 And we don't program this stuff. We just do what we're told. So,
The detour situation might be more viable if the 11th Street Bridge was rebuilt.
oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. I'm just trying to pull up the funding and see if there's an advanceable date on this or if this one is not advanceable. But I do know that is the issue, is that there's not an advanceable date on this. So it is set for a letting of August 1st of this year to be built next year.
Professional courtesy, and you didn't give any of us a heads up before now
As far as
that you were going to do this project?
We just got this project this winter, so.
From who? DOT? Who?
Well, the programming and planning, and I don't know, we don't scope these projects. We're just in project development. We just design them and construct them.
Yeah, I think some of these conversations, unfortunately, Randy, are for other WISTOT staff that we talk to about these projects. I think at this point it's, I think Stacy and Stephanie are just, they're only in the portion of this where they actually they get the details on the project and they start the process of getting it going and informing us and things like that. Some of these other concerns I think are beyond what they can answer. But obviously these are concerns that we've had for a while about future programming and what the plan is and not being included in any of that conversation and not getting any sort of timeline or schedule for either of these bridge projects for the real fix, not these Band-Aid sort of fixes. So I think we're all frustrated with it, but I don't know that we're talking to the right people tonight to be able to address it.
Yeah,
So-
thank you, Aaron.
I agree that's probably true, but so how do you guys push this back? Is the detour situation is going to be awful. Going to be terrible.
Is this something where as a council you're requesting that we get more information from WISTOT on the potential detour and then provide our response, requesting
Right.
possibly a delay until we can properly address it? Is that kind of what I'm hearing? So
Absolutely.
okay, so Stacy and Stephanie, when will you have more information for us so we can provide some sort of response back, making some requests of this?
So what information, I guess, are you looking for more information on the detour or if it's possible to push back the project in general?
Well, I think it's a combination of those two things. We'd like to see the detour information because that will help us guide what kind of response we provide you about potentially delaying.
Okay.
It's just that
So
we haven't
when
seen
is
any
your
plans
11th?
yet.
We don't have any plans.
You have to have something
don't.
you're working off of.
I just said we have the as-built sheets with red dots on them. I mean, we can send you those. That's basically, we have a title page, but
I think anything you can send us
really
now would
don't
be
have
good, and then we can allow our staff
Okay.
to provide some input on potential detours and how that might work and
okay. Yep.
possibly
Yeah.
a delay request.
And part of that discussion, I hope, is 11th Street.
So when is that 11th Street supposed to be?
It's not currently scheduled. We're kind of
We
working through that.
have it in our CIP for engineering.
So we plan on starting that process basically this year to do the engineering work, to take a look at that project and what would need to happen and things. So we're planning on starting that very soon as far as at least getting the planning work done for it.
Okay.
Any
Okay.
other questions? Oops, sorry. Go ahead.
We'll have Steph send Dean, I'm guessing,
Mhm.
as much information as we have on it, and yeah, I guess let us know what your concerns are. We'll be talking.
Great. One
Sounds
question
good.
I had was, once we get down to it, what kind of communication plan is there? I mean, is that something that you're able to help work through?
As far
Communication in
as
terms of
the-
detours of the plan?
Yes, that'll be We have our public involvement plan, and so we're gonna have we have a website out there right now that has general information on the project, and it has our contact information. But I'll probably just be emailing with you guys, and if you'd like me to come to another meeting, I'm more than happy to do that, to fill you guys in, to update you on the progress that we're making, and if anything changes. And I will definitely keep Dean in the loop on things. And if he can share some of that information or kind of be that point of contact between, that would be great as well. But like I said, if you want me to come back and explain or tell you what's going on, I can do that. Just got to let me know.
Yeah, and if I may jump in for 1 second here, since this is going to be such a tricky one for local traffic in particular, I think we'll be coordinating very closely with WSDOT to make sure that everybody is aware of when things are switching over and when lane closures are going to happen in kind of real time, rather than waiting or relying on emails and a website, because it's going to need more than that to keep people going through there. So I plan on being involved with that coordination too. So.
Hey, Dean, this is Christena O'Brien, the WSDOT communications manager. Don't mean to interrupt and jump in, but hopefully I can help out with that a little bit. Once we get closer to construction, certainly as things are going to change, I will send out traffic advisories to the media, days before this happens, hopefully, maybe a week or two, if I can get that information that quickly. I will also be tweeting updates on our Twitter account, and again, posting updates. We'll have a 511 Wisconsin site for travelers as well. I'm guessing because of where this is, we might do some portable message boards. Again, just hoping to direct traffic and make sure that folks know what's going on, because again, this is a very busy area.
Great.
Thank you, Christina.
Sure.
This is Jim Weber again. I expressed a general concern about we're 6 months away from letting bids, and we're just finding out about this project. And my experience has been, when we find out this late in the game, there's darn little we can do to change it. So I'm not happy that we're finding out this late on something this significant. So that's we're not prepared for this.
For whatever it's worth, folks, this is Christina again. I actually have been taking notes during the conversation, and I'll actually relay that to our programming and our project development folks, and hopefully we can improve that. And definitely I will also relay the fact that you guys would like more time. Again, I can't make you any promises, but I wanted to at least know that I will pass along the messages.
Well, and I think we at least, thank you, Christina, but I think we at least want a conversation with those folks. I think it's worth our time to sit down with them and have a frank conversation about what our expectations are.
Well, and I can share that as well and try to arrange that for you guys. Either, have it arrange something through me, potentially talking to Dean, because we've met before. I'll see what I can come up with, and I will be in touch.
It's going to have to happen. It's too big of a thing for our community. It's obvious that that interchange is not sufficient. It doesn't work. We've got issues with 11th Street. We've got issues elsewhere. We need to have that conversation sooner than later.
I know that there have been discussions regarding the interchange with our folks, with your mayor, with state lawmakers. That has focused on interchange replacement, not the bridge rehab project. But again, maybe there's a bigger conversation to include 11th Street, this bridge project, the future interchange, and how all of that traffic flow works. Like I said, I will talk to folks tomorrow and get the wheels turning.
I think that's right on.
Be great.
Thank you.
I've got one more question. Is with this project, could this be done like nighttime work, or once it gets started, everything has to just keep on going?
There is a potential for nighttime work. That was the original option. But given that the work would still restrict lanes and the current I don't want to call them regulations, but the standards and where we're restricted with the Bureau of Structures on how we're allowed to leave open the holes that we create. Like we can't just throw a steel plate on them anymore. That's something that they don't want us to do. So that really puts us in a bind as far as that goes, where it makes it really hard to do it at night and then still make the progress. We wouldn't be able to open the lane the next day because of cure times and just the amount of time that it would take to do something. There will be work at night. Well, I can't say for sure, but there is that option where they can work at night, but it's still going to be restricted to that 2 lanes as of right now, based off of what we came up with here. But that's, yeah, so there's a potential there would be night work. They could work 24 hours a day and really whip it out. That would be ideal to get it done. But I hope that answered your question.
That would be really expensive. And just some of you may be getting a letter from us that went out regarding the public information video that was on YouTube, and we had a slight error in staging, so we are going to be sending out another letter. We sent out a letter to all the property owners. Dean, I think you may have been on the list. Steph, was he?
I don't think so.
Oh, sorry.
No, I think it was more city administrator,
Really?
like it was.
Oh, okay.
I believe we just received that letter either today or yesterday, or it wouldn't have been yesterday, so it was a holiday, but just recently,
Okay.
so.
Okay, so you
well,
did. I apologize. I was wrong.
Heads up, you'll be getting another one.
All right, anybody else? Any questions? All right, thank you, Stacy, Steph, and Christina. Appreciate the update there. We'll look forward to more conversation around this.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Bill, I'm back.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, thank you. I appreciate it.
Of course.
All right, we're on to comments and suggestions from citizens present. Once again, we're taking comments only from residents of the city of Hudson. Keep in mind, if you are on Zoom, we don't have, we got one person here live, and I don't know if anybody is on Zoom. I can't see you if you are. So if you do have a comment, please feel free to just jump in, give us your name and your address, please. Please don't forget to unmute if you do have a comment. So having said all of that, does anybody have a comment? Are there any comments? Are there any comments? Hearing none, we'll close.
I have a comment.
I'm sorry.
I have a comment.
Okay, and
My name is Becca Hagel, and I live at 602 3rd Street in Hudson.
okay.
My comment is actually for you, Mr. Mayor. I feel that you missed an opportunity to condemn the dangerous rhetoric of the St. Croix County Republican Party, instead choosing the kind of flaccid response that solves nothing. In my opinion, you once again have refused to show any sort of competent leadership by addressing the problem. Instead of calling out the extremists by name, you kowtowed to the mob and sold out in an effort to satisfy the most extreme in your base. Toothless blanket statements, they don't solve problems. But now it's clear why. The photos of you and the former St. Croix County Republican Chairman, John Kraft, at various fundraisers show whose side you're on, and it's certainly not the citizens of Hudson. When you have friends like John Kraft and refuse to condemn extremism right here in our own community, it's clear that your Golden Rule Initiative is nothing more than empty words. Instead, it seems more like a political move in preparation for your next campaign. You claim to hold a nonpartisan position, yet you enjoy the support and frequent events with local extremists. To make things worse, you released a video on MLK Day condemning people for holding others accountable for their actions. MLK would have been disheartened by your statements. And that's all I have to say.
Okay. Any other comments? Any other comments?
I'd like to say something. Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Hi, this is Beth Weiskopf. I live in the city of Hudson on Donegal Way. And that last comment to me was very disheartening. It's doing nothing to the community to bring us together. I don't believe it's your job to condemn a political party, and that was opinionated on people, how they took that. So I would just like to say that that last comment really bothered me as a citizen of Hudson. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I have a comment.
Okay.
Did somebody else speak?
No, go ahead. I see K.Emerson.
Yep, my name is Christena Emerson. I live in Hudson, 918 Green Street. I am speaking on behalf of Talia Tajima, who is also a Hudson resident. I don't know her address though. Dr. King would have been horrified at your taking his words and twisting them to silence those who stand for our democracy and our fellow humans. Dr. King most certainly would have spoken out against the issues that you refused to make a statement of condemnation for, because the people that you would be condemning are those that have been your allies and contributors through the years. Since you've chosen to use the quotes of Dr. King, consider this further, sir. King famously penned the epistle from a jail cell in Birmingham in response to a group of white clergymen, 8 moderate principled men who had condemned as unwise and untimely his demonstrations against segregation in their city. One passage of King's response seems especially apropos to this moment. In it, he confessed that he had become gravely disappointed with the white moderate. Too often, he said, they were more devoted to order than to justice, and preferred a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice. By your own words, you are more devoted to order than justice. You prefer a negative peace with an absence of tension over a presence of positive peace and justice. Dr. King had it correct when he spoke upon those with their mindset. Shallow understanding from people of goodwill is more frustrating than absolute misunderstanding from people of ill will. Show that you truly align yourself with Dr. King and aren't just seeking negative peace. Show by action and deed that you seek justice with a focus toward true healing and unity in our community. Will you tonight take the first step, Mayor O'Connor, and disavow or condemn the traitorous actions and ongoing rhetoric of our own local hate groups and those that attacked our democracy? Thank you.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I've got one. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, Hudson, Wisconsin hasn't seen extremism yet. I'm just going to tell everybody to have faith and remember that the best is yet to come. You guys have a good night.
Would you please identify yourself?
Yeah, could you identify yourself, Brandon?
Yeah, this is Brandon. I live up Carmichael behind the Pizza Hut up that way.
All right, thank you. All right, any other comments? Any other comments? Any other comments? Hearing none, we'll close that portion of the agenda. Consent agenda.
Approve the meeting minutes from December 7th, 2020 and the January 4th, 2021 regular council meeting, and the December 8th, 2020 and the January 13th, 2021 special council meetings.
Would you pull that? I've got some corrections.
Okay. Approve the claims in the amount of $8,304,880.57. Place on file the December 8th, 2020 Public Utility Commission meeting minutes. Approve operator's license listed on the list sheet. Approve fourth quarter and the 2020 building inspector year-end reports. Approve changing polling locations from City Hall to the new fire station on Ward Avenue.
Can you pull that one, please?
Yep. Approve the Public Works Director pay grade. Set a public hearing date of February 15th, 2021 for adoption of special assessments and the 2020 mill overlay project, the Industrial Street and Stage Line Road. Approval of conditional use permit application for garage height to exceed 20 feet at 809 3rd Street, Robert and Wendy Hansen. Approval of the Hudson Library's 2021 Solar Walk. Approval of the 2021 Grandview Park concessions agreement with the Hudson Boosters. Approval of the letter of engagement with Bolton and Mink for engineering services in the amount of $20,600 for the 2021 stormwater project. Approve the Hudson Hot Air Fair event for February 5th through the 7th of 2021 and to designate as a community event. And approve the agreement with Zappa Brothers in the amount of $4,590 to abandon the well at 1421 2nd Street, west of the Public Works facility.
Move to approve.
Second.
We've got a motion to approve with the exception of items, I'm sorry, Joyce, was it A?
A.
A and F. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, roll call.
Morissette,
Yes.
Alms,
Yes.
DeZiel,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Atkins Hoggett,
Yes.
and Hall.
Yes.
Motion's approved. Consent agenda is approved. Item A.
Okay, on the minutes from December 8th, it says regular council meeting. It should say special council meeting.
Thank you.
On the minutes from January 4th, on the second page, when we were discussing reinstating ordinance 19-20, it does not have in it that we removed the restrictions on Thursday.
Okay, got it.
And then same on Wednesday, January 13th, that's a special council meeting.
Okay, I was using new software, so thank you.
You're welcome. I get it. Move to approve with the changes.
Second.
Motion and second to approve minutes with the changes. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Item F.
I'm concerned about the walkers and the folks downtown that have always used City Hall for voting. Was that addressed or thought about?
It was, and we also have concerns with City Hall because of the handicap accessible, where the fire hall is still has a way better, the doorways, the steps, there's no step location. So all in all, the new fire hall had more entrance and capabilities there and better parking than people from downtown. And just the space constraints with the amount of absentee ballots and central count taking up City Hall now, and not knowing how long the old fire hall will still be there and accessible for us to use.
I won't object to it, but I'm just really concerned about those voters not being able to get to a polling spot.
Well, we have options for in-person too at City Hall that they can do prior as well. And a lot of people have been taking advantage of that now going forward. So, and people are more aware of that. So I think that could address some of that issue.
Yeah, well, I hope you're right. But I'll move to approve with concern.
Second.
Motion and second to approve. Discussion.
Other question, I don't know if the fire chief is on, but I'm just a little concerned if, and Becky, you probably know the layout better than I do. If there's voting going on and we have a major incident or something, can we do both out of the same station, I guess is what I'm trying to ask.
Yeah, so we did discuss that. I did talk with Chief Martin and we did walk around the entire building. And so we're going to block the parking so fire trucks and staff still have access to the back of the building to access the trucks. The room we are using is right in the front of the building and the hallway, and everything's locked off, so it will not interfere with a call that day.
Thank you.
All right, looking at the, if you just think about the mapping of where our voting places are now, they're really all are condensed into a relatively small area, relatively small circle. So we really need to look at who votes where. For example, District 2 perhaps should be voting at the fire station as opposed to the people way out on the north end. So this doesn't feel like it's completely thought out. We really need to examine the whole thing and how many people are voting where. where and how far they have to travel. So Randy, I share your concern.
You want to hold off on this, Jim? I'll rescind the motion.
Well, okay, let me just weigh in. One of the things that we're doing is we're trying to address the issues that Becky brought up with the voting right now, either at City Hall or the old fire station. But it is a redistricting year now, so that process is going to be done this year. So once we get the redistricting done, that was our thought, is that we would look at a bigger picture then of, okay, so the redistricting completed, we know where things are going to be at now for a little while, at least with the wards and things like that. And then we were going to take a look at possibly some of the other locations, either rotating where you vote or even moving some of the other locations if it made sense. But with this one, it was mostly really just to address the fact that, one, City Hall is not an option anymore. With all the absentee balloting, we have to use City Hall strictly for central count. We can't have it for both. It just doesn't work. We don't have the space. And then the other concern, obviously, with the old fire hall is it won't be there forever. But even now, if you've gone in there, especially in November, it's not great. April probably will be okay, but it's pretty cold. It's not really, an ideal location, where the new fire hall is actually an excellent location as far as the facility itself. So I think what we're trying to say is that we will look at the bigger picture of all the places and where they're going to be, but we were just waiting after the redistricting to do it. But this was one where we wanted to address at least the known issue of City Hall and the fire hall.
And complaints have come in from the fire hall not liking it, from poll workers to actual voters also. That's kind of where it came from.
It's not great in there. I mean,
No.
if you went in there, it's not
It's
an ideal
dirty,
location.
it's cold, it's loud, yeah.
I'll relate an experience is that when I first started on the council, and of course I talked to as many people as I could, and I got a lot of feedback about where do we vote. They had apparently just recently changed. I'm not sure when. And that went up through two elections that people were saying, where do we vote? They didn't understand that I was actually the person that was someone else before. So every time we redistrict, and I can imagine if we move the people to a new voting location and then a year later move them to another voting location, because we redistrict and found that it's a better situation. I think unless we absolutely have to, I would say leave it until we redistrict. Let's not make that move now.
Well, one thing I can say with that is that we will not change the new fire hall location. Now, we may look at who votes there and if we potentially might move the other two locations, but this location is going to be this location because it's just much better.
About that. No question about that.
Well, and it comes with storage. It comes with storage of all the. It comes with storage of all the equipment. Also, they have a great storage facility where now we are moving it from third floor to the basement, the big voting equipment, and now we're going to be implementing Badger books. So that's a big factor too of where we can store all this stuff versus hauling everything from 3 different polling locations as well.
But as opposed to changing people's polling locations in a space of 1 to 2 years is a bad idea.
All right, we got a motion and a second.
I don't know why.
Chime in,
Go ahead, Sarah.
I agree that I think most people, if they don't follow city council and they don't really follow city government, but they do wish to vote every time they have an opportunity, that changing that is going to disenfranchise some folks.
Well, I do.
Go ahead.
There is, I am going to have, if it does get approved, we have postcards that we're going to mail out to all the voters in that districts, those wards, letting them know that their polling place has moved. They are aware that the old fire hall is only temporary at this point. They have been very receptive of that. So they know a change is coming. So there'll be notification there being mailed out directly to each voter, as well as on it's publicized in the paper. It has to be published in the paper and on our website. And we do have a new link. It's a GIS link, so you can click on your address and it does tell you what district you're in and where your polling location is located at. That has just been added since all the COVID changing stuff in April.
Anybody else? All right,
it's a tremendous communication issue. that's not gonna, we're gonna have a lot of dissatisfied citizens.
Anybody else? All right, we got a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed?
No.
No.
All right, I can't, yeah, can we do a roll call, please?
Morissette,
No.
Alms,
Aye.
DeZiel,
Yes.
Weber,
No,
Atkins Hoggett,
Yes.
and Hall.
No.
All right. I vote aye. Motion's approved. That was just finishing up consent calendar, wasn't it?
Correct.
All right, discussion and possible action on public safety state of emergency should be reinstated.
So as we talked about last meeting, we basically reinstated the public safety state of emergency with the restriction basically of bars, restaurants, anyone with a liquor license having to close at 10:30 on Fridays and Saturdays. And we said we review it again in 2 weeks. Current status on the other side of the river is that they have reopened bars and restaurants to basically 50% capacity, but they are having to close at 10 p.m. So the council just needs to decide if you want to continue this in the same, and if you want to continue it, do you want to continue with the same criteria we have right now, or do you want to change the criteria, or do you want to let it go and see how that goes?
Aaron, do we have anybody from Hudson PD on to tell us a little bit
got,
about
the
how it's
chief
been
is here,
working the
Paul.
last couple of weeks?
I believe Jeff is at the council chambers, yes.
I am here, Paul.
You have questions, Paul?
Yeah, I'm just, Chief, thanks for joining us. I'm just
Jeff?
wanting to get your slant and your thoughts on, how it's been going the last couple of weeks since we went to the 10:30.
Yeah, sure. So, obviously, it's been a drastic impact in the positive. We've had a handful of drunken disorderly situations the last couple of weeks, but nothing beyond normal and nothing even close to what we were experiencing in early December.
What about Thursday nights? Have there been any problems on Thursday night since we're allowing them to be open late?
No, there have not been any issues Thursday night from the beginning of when we created the ordinance. There were no issues on Thursday night, and then when we lifted the Thursday restriction, there's still not been any issues on Thursday nights.
What is your recommendation to us?
My recommendation would be to extend the ordinance. I think it's had the impact that we wanted it to have, and it makes me very nervous to go too late into the night with Minnesota closing at 10 o'clock still, because it gives, I don't have a crystal ball, but I know people, and I know if you give people an opportunity, they're going to seize it. We saw it years ago when Minnesota had an earlier bar time than Wisconsin. It was a mad rush for that last hour to try and get to Wisconsin for their last call. So I am nervous that we would experience the same thing if we went too late into the night.
Would you do 11 o'clock, Jeff?
Yeah, I believe I said at the last meeting I didn't think 11 o'clock would be an issue. 12 o'clock makes me a little more nervous, but I don't think 11 o'clock would be an issue at all.
I'd like to move it to 11 o'clock, and that's a motion.
Second?
Do we have to renew the state of emergency?
You're just extending it. We're amending it to,
So,
if it passes, to extend it to, I guess you need to say a date and what the criteria are.
all in the same motion?
Yeah, I think you need to say what you
Got it,
want to
Randy?
do.
All in the same motion?
Yeah, I'll move it, what, it was 2 weeks that we had this one in?
Yes.
I'd like to see it move to 11 PM, 11:30 out, like we did with the 10:30, and have it revisited in our next 2-week meeting, which would be
February 1st.
1st.
Yep.
I
This
have
is
a
Becca.
question.
Can I just, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I have a question for the chief. Chief Willems, you had mentioned, kind of comparing to the past when the Minnesota bars were open for an hour shorter than we were seeing that influx until we synced up. Are you, I really want to make sure we're comfortable with 11. I mean, I really want to stay open till 11. I know the financial implications for our entrepreneurs here in town have been significant, and I want to move to 11. But if you were just saying that we had an influx when there was just an hour difference, this is now creating that hour difference. And I just, for the concerns of public safety, I want to get, I think I said this at the last meeting, I really want to get this right. I don't want us to start seeing problems and then we as a council have to, go back the other direction and draw attention to our difficulties here in Hudson again. We just don't need that kind of mar on our reputation after what happened in early December. So I just want to talk about that 1 hour difference versus the half an hour. Or for an hour versus, it's an hour versus a half an hour right now.
Right. No, I still don't see any issues with 11 o'clock.
I guess Jeff and I have talked about this a little bit. I mean, it's definitely a different crowd that's going to try to come over from 1 to 2 versus, 10 to 11. I just don't, we think that this is, it's a different situation. I know it's an hour, but you're talking about definitely different time of morning for that hour change. So I don't think that, we hope that this won't have that same sort of effect that it did when it was 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock, that sort of thing. So we've discussed internally as staff and we're comfortable with it.
Okay,
If we have a problem, we could call a special meeting next week, so we could try it for the weekend and see what happens, and then if Jeff has concerns, he can ask for a special meeting.
This is Mary Claire. Can I just ask a question?
Yeah, go ahead, Mary Claire.
Thank you. So I'm just, businesses need to plan. So, if this changes beyond 11 o'clock and so forth. So, I mean, is this a policy that the council is just going to continue to look at every 2 weeks, or what is the long range plan?
So I don't know who wants to answer that. I can take a shot at it, I guess. Obviously, the motion right now is to look at it every 2 weeks. I think Sarah last week or 2 weeks ago had said that, we should try to take this in baby steps and see how it goes, because we don't want to move ahead and push the closure time out and then have to retract that and bring it back again. So I would say, it's going to be something we're going to probably look at every couple of weeks and get a feel for, what's happening on the street. And go from there. I mean, if things don't change dramatically, maybe we can take a different look at it in 2 weeks and extend it out a little bit longer. But obviously, that's going to be up to the council. Does that answer your question, Mary Claire? And does that represent the thinking of the council? And Jeff?
Well, I think
I'd like to add to that.
Whoa. Go ahead, Sarah. Sorry.
Okay.
To add to that, the fact remains that we are right next to Minnesota, and as much as their rules and regulations don't govern us, we are greatly impacted by the fact that we are a border town. So I would like to continue to monitor this while watching what happens as they open up. I think it's going to change as they increase their capacities and as they are open later into the evenings. We just have to pay attention to those factors.
Okay. Anybody else? Mary Claire, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
I had one more question for the chief, if he's still there.
Yep.
So, Chief, have you seen, since Minnesota reopened, crowd sizes? Do you have any sense of, are we at the same level we've had on the other kind of weekends? Or in other words, are we Is the crowd size a little bit smaller now that Minnesota has reopened to 50%?
Well, that might be a better question for Mary Claire. From what we've seen, we have seen a little bit of a decrease throughout the day. We're not as busy in downtown from like the 11 o'clock in the morning hour as we were, but the evenings still seem to be pretty busy. But I don't know if Mary Claire has some more information on that.
No, I mean, I think, you know, it's different for each different establishment, and I can't speak for all of them. I think, you know, they're experiencing having some locals come back, you know, now that it is, you know, not quite as busy, but, you know, the concern is too, we're kind of in that January timeframe where everything kind of slows down a little bit. So, you know, we just think financially for these businesses, we just want to be sure that they, you know, can keep moving forward and have their doors open and paying their team members.
Sure, you're concerned, Mary Claire, and I certainly want to keep commerce coming into the community. And for those folks that own those businesses, I think, as Sarah said, these baby steps are the way to go.
Yep.
The sooner we can open this up, the better. And believe me, I want to open this up.
Yep.
As soon as possible.
Right, and my only question was, you know, if businesses understand that it's going to be evaluated every 2 weeks, it's just, you know, they can't necessarily just ramp up their staff overnight. So I think it was just a question to just kind of see how it was going to be handled.
All right. Was there, Randy, you made the motion. Was there a second to the motion?
Second, yes.
Okay, we have a motion, a second. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion's approved. Let's see. Discussion possible action regarding the diversity in law enforcement listening session follow-up. Aaron?
We talked about this, unfortunately, it was a few months ago at this point now, where we discussed as a council if you had any items or things that you'd like to see followed up from the event. And so now rotating back to that, and it's not something that we've as staff just ignored. We've been working on these items as well as, you know, obviously the other end of the year closeout sort of thing. So I attempted, I think, based off all my notes, to address the questions that some of the council members raised and discussing what our plans are moving forward with them. And I think I mentioned this before too, that this is just kind of some of the items. We're not just trying to check boxes here and say we're done. We are attempting to look at this as a big picture thing, and always trying to make sure that as an organization, as a city, that you know, internally with staff and things, that we're trying to address these sort of issues, and not just saying, okay, we did this, and this, now we're done, we can all move on. So I don't want it to appear that way, but I also want to make sure I address the specific questions that were raised. So with that, I don't really have any necessarily request from the council at this point, other than, you know, happy to answer questions. Otherwise, my plan is to keep updating the council on a fairly regular basis on what's happening, what we're doing, things like that.
Aaron, is it possible to make this a monthly, quarterly, or have you on a training day for a monthly, quarterly type training on the issues at hand?
Yeah, that's what we're kind of working on, is that there's a bunch of different training things out there, and there's different parts of this, of course, too. I mean, we're talking about the obvious things with the cultural competencies and things like that. We're also talking about the social media side and recognizing you know, potential issues there and implicit bias, all this stuff. So we're trying to piece together from these different sources, whether it's the police department's training that they have, there's some standalone training. The League of Wisconsin Municipalities is starting to offer more on this, which is very helpful, that we can participate in. So yeah, we're trying to get this so it's something that, like I said, we don't just do it once and hey, we're done. Yay. Everybody can put a certificate in their box. But then we're going to try to do some ongoing things that we're going to require basically staff-wide training for. So yes, is sort of the answer. We're just not quite there yet because we're trying to figure out how to make it work and where we're going to get the training from. But that's definitely something I'll keep bringing back to update the council on.
Okay, thanks.
Aaron, can I ask a question? And Mr. Mayor, I just have a few.
Sure, go ahead.
addisonfiliatreaux. I'm glad to hear all that information. I was wondering if, and I'm glad to hear there's a robust training program for employee assistance. I'm wondering if secondary trauma evals are required, because there have been a few pretty big events recently that would be traumatic to anyone, and I can't imagine going through that. As a city, are you still giving police officers the 14-day COVID pay if they're out for quarantine, since that policy expired, I believe, nationally, because police officers have some of the highest exposure rates to COVID? And it said in one of their things that they need from the public is that officers are regularly out, and worrying about finances plus COVID is stressful in an already stressful position. And then with the staff training that you said you wanted all the staff to do, I'm wondering if it's the same one that was listed in the November 9th agenda, because that had some outdated terms like gypsy instead of Roma. And that's all.
Mike, what?
I would say at this point, let me get information and then respond at a future meeting, if that's okay. I don't want to just answer on the fly with some of this.
Thank you.
I've got a question for Jeff. In answer to one of the questions about what the police department needs from the council, you suggested more police officers. What would be your plan for adding police officers, and how soon?
Well, it's funny you asked that, because I've been asked that by a couple of members over the last few weeks. And yeah, you know, we need to stay as our community grows, right? We need to make sure and focus that our department continues to grow as well. So I guess with that said, yeah, just the ongoing financial support that the council has shown us is to just, keep it going. As far as a plan of how many officers, realistically, we didn't budget for any new officers this year. So that's something that we're going to be discussing at public safety probably next week, or not next week, but in the coming weeks. Mm-hmm. Our next public safety meeting to see what the public safety committee would like to recommend. But I do have some things to bring forward at public safety in regard to that.
Okay, good, thanks.
Anybody else?
Yep,
All right,
Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
Sorry. Well, I just want to thank Aaron for putting the list together. Appreciate your notes. I just want to let the council know that I have been doing some background work on what I think originally we called a diversity committee that's on the list there. And I've been meeting with some citizens, kind of coming up with a charter for what would be called a Citizens Advisory Board. They would be advisory to the Hudson Council. That charter, the details are still kind of being worked out, but I will get that to Aaron next week, and so that he can get it to the rest of the council. I'd like it as a discussion item in 2 weeks, not as necessarily an action item, because I think there needs to be more input from the council on it. But the idea is that the Citizens Council would function as a diverse group of people who could help us on diversity issues as well as other issues that the council wanted to get some advice on. So just know that there's a little bit of background work going on with myself, with some citizens who are really impressive and really wanting to create this as a aid to the council. So just that information will be coming out. And again, I think we can look it over in 2 weeks and try to shape that up better with the whole council. So.
All right, anybody else? Okay, approve and adopt the city's 2021 fee schedule.
Oops. Sorry, I never tell if I'm muted or I'm switching screens. Yeah, basically not a whole, honestly, I don't know that we had really any actual fee updates. No real increases. We just want to, every year we adopt our schedule, so we got it all consolidated as much as possible into one document so everybody can see it. But I'm really not aware, I guess, of any changes to any of the fees. If any of the department heads are on that know differently, let me know. But I think for the most part, we kept everything the same. We just want to adopt a fee schedule every year.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and second to approve. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion's approved. Discussion possible action on adoption of the City of Hudson retaining wall policy.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'm hoping to go through this quickly since our meeting is gone long here already. I'm not going to go through the presentation that's in your packet. I hope maybe you can follow along as I kind of skim through it here. The City of Hudson currently does not have a retaining wall policy in place, which means that there are no standards for retaining walls to be built according to, and also when things need to be replaced. And because retaining walls are high cost, potentially high hazard pieces of infrastructure, we want to make sure we have something on the books to regulate those things so that they don't become a safety hazard and then also a high cost item. So it also, we need something to establish who's responsible for these retaining walls, especially those along city right of way, because right now it's ambiguous as to who's paying for what. And establish some construction standards. Some of the construction standards would require, walls over 3 feet tall would need a permit for construction, require engineered plans, require fall protection in the form of a railing on top, and must be inspected at the time of construction to make sure that they're constructed correctly so that they stand for a long time. Cost responsibility, I think this is kind of one of the biggest parts of this is if walls are on private property, 100% to the private property owner, which makes sense, not eligible for special assessments. Walls parallel the city right-of-way, so running along a right-of-way line, either if the wall is in the right-of-way that somebody other than the city constructed it there, or if it's on private property or adjacent to city right-of-way. The new construction, due to a change in the city right-of-way, would be 100% city cost. New construction, reconstruction, due to a change in the private property, would be the private property cost. And then reconstruction of retaining walls with no change in elevation on either side would be 100% cost to whoever is being held up by the wall. And then walls wholly on city properties, like in a park property or something like that, would be 100% city cost. We propose to allow the costs for maintenance and reconstruction of retaining walls that are parallel to city right-of-way to be eligible for special assessments if elected by the property owner, if the property owner is on the hook for the cost. Costs for retaining walls that would be on private property would not be eligible for special assessments unless otherwise approved by Common Council. We don't want it to be a common occurrence that the city would be somehow fronting money for the construction of retaining walls on private property unless there's a very special case that we don't know about right now. So in the packet, I just gave some ways that we identify failing retaining walls and some of the standards that we'll be using in the future if this policy is adopted. So the permitting process would be professional engineer has to prepare plans and specifications for retaining wall construction, and then they have to be constructed according to those plans, right? And then, we can refuse to issue a permit if it's adjacent to city right away, if it's in the public good to not have a wall there. For example, if the city plans to expand the road in the future or add a sidewalk or something, we don't want to be installing walls and then have to move them later, essentially. So, and the draft policy is attached to this agenda item. I was kind of thinking that since there's a lot of information in here that we wouldn't be necessarily taking action to approve this tonight. There are also some ordinance changes that we want to bring forward to kind of adopt this as well into our city ordinances. But I wanted to get everybody's questions, concerns, any changes to make right now so that we can accommodate that for hopeful adoption. I also want to say too that the timing of this, is a little bit rushed, or I guess that it needs to happen sooner rather than later, because there are multiple retaining walls along 2nd Street that we want to get replaced with the state's project in 2021 because of the poor condition of those retaining walls. So we want something in place to be able to follow for that project. So I'll open up to any questions, concerns, feedback, anything else.
Thanks, Dean. Anybody got any questions?
Quick question about the 35 project, Dean. You said there's a number of ones that might have to be replaced. Where would they fall under our policy? Would they be all 100% property owner, or would those be city or shared?
The vast majority of them that I know of would be property owner ones. I'm thinking of many of them that are along kind of the blocks between like Vine and Orange. There's a number of poor retaining walls along that stretch that need to be replaced. There are a few more down by the railroad bridge, and I'm thinking of one in particular that's adjacent to the stairway that goes up to Pine Street. That's our property that we would need to address. A portion of that wall that's in poor shape. So we would need to consider that. But we also want to make sure that, the standards if we're telling somebody that they need to replace a retaining wall because it's a safety hazard, we want to make sure that we're owning up to that on our end as well. So.
Anybody else? All right, thank you, Dean. Appreciate it. Discussion of possible action on the 2021-2022 CIP. Oh, I'm sorry.
Do we need a motion? I would move to approve the retaining wall policy.
Second.
No, he wanted to wait.
He wanted to wait.
Till the ordinance, there's ordinances that need to be changed to be consistent with the policy. So Dean had.
Got it.
Okay.
Discussion and possible action on City Hall improvements and construction.
Okay, so we talked about this before. We did discuss it at Finance Committee a few times, but basically staff has been looking at City Hall and some of the issues that that we kind of have with the building, work that we need done. I did enclose in the packet a list of the work. It's obviously super hard to read, but it's fairly basic wear and tear things for the most part. We're talking about the carpet. We're talking about we have a roof leak on the roof with the cupola, and this was brought up in the finance meeting that we'd like. Randy especially brought this up, that we should try to save that cupola on the roof if we can. Really, just because of the historic nature of the building, and that's part of it. So we are going to look at that, how we can save it and still fix the roof. But otherwise, it's painting. It's like ADA updates to the doors, to the bathrooms. We're looking at retrofitting all the lights with LED. If you've been in City Hall, they're most definitely not LED lights. So we want to look at that process again. It's a big cost with like for the LED lights, but we are looking at hopefully offsetting some of that with rebates and things from our energy provider. Another big item is the council chambers. As we've talked before, we're looking at making the council chambers permanent council chambers. So we're moving the portable tables and things like that and actually putting in a permanent council seating, getting all that wiring off the floor and running proper wiring for the microphones and for monitors and to plug in a laptop or iPad, all those sort of things. So really turning it into a real council chambers versus kind of right now the temporary that we sort of have. We also have some work that we need to do for security in the building. So we'd be talking about increasing, kind of putting in some more permanent security measures at the main reception desk, and then also key fobbing all our doors, those sort of things. Right now we have the kind of the number punch and things like that, not the best way to do it. So doing those sort of improvements, and then exterior wise, we'd be looking at tuck pointing, things like that. We're also included in this $500,000 number, some work that we need to do at the police department on the roof, and also the police and library for the exterior building there with tuck pointing as well. So with all that, the total project cost is about $460,000 is our estimate. We haven't bid, we don't know for sure yet, but this is our staff putting together an estimate. Because of the nature of the project, it's just a bunch of very small projects. So we can't really bid this as one project. We don't think we'll get contractors that are going to bid on one project like this. So what we're proposing is using a construction manager, and that way we would put out individual bid packets for all these items. So we'd have over a dozen bid packets for everything. It's still a bid process, low bid, all those sealed bids. But because of the nature of the number of projects that we're trying to do here, it would be that that the construction manager would handle getting the bids out, reviewing the bids, and then managing the project as it goes. We did an RFP for construction managers. We got, I think, 6, 7 or so responses. And then the response that we're recommending council approve is Market & Johnson. They came in with a very competitive cost, basically 4.7% of the estimated project costs, are about $24,000 on the $500,000 project. And so we think it's definitely worth it. We don't have the staff time or ability to be able to manage all these kind of different things that we're going to be doing with the project. So I guess with that, this is kind of what we're recommending that we do with the building, and we're open to any questions that you might have about it.
I'll move we approve.
Second.
Motion second to approve. Discussion?
I have some questions, Aaron. I'm just personally struggling with some of the costs associated with it. I do recognize that there needs to be improvement, so I appreciate that. 2 questions. One is the council chambers, I think it's listed at $80,000. And I can understand the wiring piece, but I don't personally feel a need to go to some kind of big, I don't know, permanent chamber. I think it's actually maybe to our benefit to keep it flexible when there's other things maybe that need to happen. But it seems to me there's something that just struck me as wrong about that, and I'm trying to put my finger on it. But it just feels like we're servant leaders, and to me, the council chambers work as is. So the $80,000 just seems like a big price tag. I would have a hard time justifying to my constituents those types of changes. I get the wiring, and maybe that could be a separate thing, but I'm wondering if we could agree to stick with the tables and bring down some of that cost on that. And then the other question I have is just, I just don't know the timing of it with coming out of COVID and some of the budget struggles I think we have. That's a lot of money for the entire project. And I realize that there's some other projects rolled into there, but I'm wondering if it can't be bid out as kind of one thing or something, could it be staggered over time? I mean, could we do, the carpet and the painting first or something, and another year we could go and do something else? It just seems like a big piece that I'm not quite sure the timing is right for. I think there's certain things we absolutely have to do, but I'm just not sure all of it needs to be done now, if that makes sense. So just some things to think about for the council.
And like I said, I don't disagree that some of the items aren't quite necessary, but I mean, if you go through that building, I mean, we're holding the carpet together with duct tape in many places. This is one of those things where I don't know when the timing is necessarily right, but it's been put off for a long time. All these things, the council chamber conversation, I think, that's obviously a valid question as far as keeping it the way it is versus turning into a kind of a regular council chamber. I've just had never worked with one with the temporary and the cables and things. It's definitely not ideal.
Anybody else? All right, we got a motion, a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on the 2021-2022 CIP.
So next one, let me get to that.
What's that?
All right. Hold on here. Okay. So we talked about this with the finance committee a long time ago. Basically back in October, we rolled this out with the budget when we were having that conversation. And basically what we said at that time is just because of what's going on with the economy, with COVID, things like that, we generally do a 5+ year CIP. But because of the situation right now, we're basically limiting the CIP to our bonding cycle. So we generally do a bonding cycle every 2 years to pay for projects, and that it would be 2021 would be our next year for bonding. So with that, we basically shrunk our CIP down to a 2-year plan. We still obviously have the longer range CIP out there, but we're not looking at really doing much with that right now until really we know when the economy is going to come back, how things are going to look before we make any sort of large commitments. So this is really what staff put together as kind of a bare bones CIP. These are projects that we really need to get done. They are ones that are definitely important projects for the community. They're things that are prioritized with Dean and Mike that need to happen. And with that, and with the bonding, basically what we've looked at is if we do this, the projects that we have on here, we're looking at, basically about $5 million in bonding and notes, basically debt, which fits in with our long-term debt cycle with debt rolling off. This won't have any effect on our debt levy. So even though we'll do the bonding this year, we don't actually pay for it until next year just because of the timing. But this won't make our debt levy go up next year because we'll have other debt rolling off. So we're trying to keep in line with a fairly level debt levy moving forward. And if you remember this year's budget, we actually saw a fairly big decrease in our debt levy because we had a bunch of old debt roll off. And what we're trying to do is to keep our future levy at that decreased amount moving forward. So we're not trying to say, oh yeah, we got debt here and we're going to keep adding debt so it always is here growing. We saw a fairly significant decrease in the debt levy in 2021. And moving forward now, 2022, if we do this, we're going to stay at that lower level. Even though we lowered it this year, we'll be able to maintain that because we're trying to fit our future projects into that for now until we know where the economy is going. Now, if things get back on track, things look a lot better, then we can look at doing another bonding cycle in 2022 and do more projects and add to that debt, long-term debt. But for right now, as staff, we didn't feel comfortable with that. We didn't think it's fitting with the council goals of trying to keep everything as low as possible right now until we can kind of get through this pandemic and see where we stand. So with that, I can run through basically in the packet what the projects are for 2021 and 2022. Obviously, the first thing we have in both those years is a City Hall project. So that's where that $500,000 comes from. We've got some funding in there for a backup server as the city kind of grows and our technology needs grow. We just need another server. We have a fireboat in the CIP. Now, just note that these are items in the CIP, but we won't actually approve purchase or things like that until we go for bids, bring them to the council, talk about it. But with the instances that we've had with our fire department and the need for a boat, it's something that we've wanted to include in the CIP for a while. So we do have it in there now. We have some police upgrades and things like that. And then, of course, our biggest part always is our streets and infrastructure projects. So we've got the whole list on the, I don't know what pages in the packet are we at here, but we have the whole list in the packet of the, let me get to it, of the different projects and their years. So if you look on page, I'll get there. 186 is the 2021 projects and 187 is the 2022 projects. But you can see the list of all of our projects as far as like just, we've got some work. So like for example, next year we've got our 2nd Street projects, which are coinciding with the state project, of course. We got our street maintenance program. We've got some alley resurfacing, things like that. And then when you look at the bottom of 2021 for basically that slip ramp and the Hagen Street Bridge, we have included money in there to begin the engineering costs. We want to get that project going, but we need to do the engineering work on it first to know where we stand, what kind of funding we need, things like that. So that's one identified there. And then of course we have our parks projects. And if you look next to each project, it'll say either other funding or bonding and notes. So bonding and notes is basically debt. Other funding is other funding. So when you look down in 2021, like one of the big items under parks is the Lakefront Park boat launch, ramp, exit parking. We've got 1.5 million there. So with that, we're looking at a combination of hopefully grant funding, and then if we have a match with that grant funding, it would be using our downtown tax increment revenue for that. And then the same with the floating recreational docks that are being worked on for the Lakefront Park. We'd be looking at grant funding and tax increment revenue as a match for that as well. So that's usually what the other funding is. But honestly, most of our projects that we're looking at are going to be all bonds and notes, just debt coverage. So I guess with that, it's a very condensed CIP. We're trying to keep it simple until we really have a better handle on where we're going to be financially as a community. So I guess we're open for any questions, comments, changes, anything you'd like to do with it. And again, note, by approving this tonight, all we're doing is saying the CIP looks good. Then we'll begin the bonding and note process. And then once that's done, we come back with individual projects when they're ready to make sure you're ready to go with them, that sort of thing. So this is just kind of the first step in being okay with the plan.
Say, Aaron, do we add, in light of what happened with the downtown stuff, our alleyways, I'd like to see more lighting, safety, security wise in our alleys downtown. And probably more, I don't know, maybe towards the lakefront, the beach house parking lot, but addressing that issue in the CIP with alley lighting is basically what I'm at.
Mike, is that something we can pull together? And Dean, we can look at some additional potential lighting for downtown and get that added on there?
And maybe even work with Andrea Jorgensen with XL.
Yeah. Well, and I know we've done 2 new ones, right, Mike, already?
Yeah. Yeah, we put one behind the Smiling Moose and another one behind Dick's Bar in the alleyway there. So, but there's some existing poles that we can add lighting to, Randy, that we can look at least in the alleyways. And it doesn't cost the city anything to install those. It just goes on our monthly utility charge. But then as far as the beach house, parking lot, that would be an added expense that wouldn't be covered by Xcel Energy. We would have to budget for added lighting in that lot.
Okay.
We can definitely do that and get that number. And I think in any changes that you might have here, my goal would be is we'll adjust other things to make it fit within what we kind of have laid out here for the debt. Right now, I feel the most comfortable trying to keep our debt levy as flat as possible until we know what's happening. So if you have changes to this, I think we'll make some adjustments in other areas to get it to work.
Are you looking for a motion then?
Yes.
I'll move that we approve the CIP for the 2-year bonding cycle.
Second.
Second.
Got a motion and second to approve. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on Resolution 2-21, support for outdoor recreation assistance to improve riverfront recreational opportunities at Lakefront Park.
So speaking of the improvements at Lakefront Park, in order to apply for the grant funding through the Wisconsin DNR, the local municipality needs to pass a resolution in support of the project and just identifying that the money has been identified and that if the grant is received, that the city is going to go ahead with the project. So it's just a resolution in front of you tonight to approve in order for us to apply for the grant funding.
Motion to approve Resolution 2-21.
We need a motion to suspend.
Move to suspend.
Motion and second to suspend. Roll call.
Morissette,
Yes.
Alms,
Yes.
DeZiel,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Atkins Hoggett,
Yes.
and Hall.
Yes.
Motion's approved. Rules are suspended.
Motion to approve Resolution 2-21.
Second.
Got a motion and second to approve. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion of possible action on updating the 2020 sewer rate and connection fee ordinance 198-10.
Good evening, everybody. Kip Peters, Utility Director. Back in July 6th of 2020, City Council actually adopted a 2020 sewer rate and connection fee study that was written by Trilogy. Since then, there's been a need to make some changes in there, and we can get into what some of the changes were here in a minute. Included changes are an amendment to the report to provide documentation of how much is included in the rates for the wastewater treatment plant, the general capital, and how much is for the city and village collection system accounts. And more information on the funding sources for capital costs. So we are looking to not only update the 2020, actually it'll be the 2021 sewer rate and connection fee study that was done by Trilogy, but we are also looking to make some amendments to Chapter 198 of the municipal code, and all that is attached. Christine from Trilogy is on tonight, who wrote the report. So I guess instead of me fumbling through it, I will kind of just turn it over to her. She can hit on some of the highlights on what has been changed, and then also on what's been changed with the ordinance.
All right, thank you, and good evening, everyone. I don't want to get into too much time on this, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have. With respect to the report, most of what you'll see that's different in there versus the version that we looked at last summer just has to do with some wording changes, just to make it clear that the rates include some amounts that get transferred to the Village of Hudson's sewer collection system account, and then also to the city's sewer collection system account. We did also, on page 15 of the report, added a new section just including some detail in there as far as what capital improvements we were kind of including in that cash flow for the next 5 years. Nothing's changed on that really. Just wanted to make sure that that was in the report and it was clear, how much was included for wastewater treatment plant improvements versus other routine replacements at the wastewater treatment plant versus there's one sewer interceptor project in there for the Highway 35 sewer interceptor replacement. So that was one change. And then we also just broke out the amounts that in the appendix on page 41 of the report. We just had a line item on that table for capital improvements that would be funded, kind of routine capital improvements funded on an annual basis out of sewer rates. And so we did break out the amounts that were included in there for the city and village collection system accounts. And then the rest of that is just for routine replacements at the wastewater treatment plant and vehicle replacements and things like that. So we didn't actually, those were all factored into our sewer rate study that you looked at last June and July. So this was just more of just adding a little bit more documentation there. The only numbers we tweaked were just updating the interest rate for the wastewater treatment plant loan, which the DNR adjusted downward a little bit since the study was prepared last spring. So that's on the report itself. And then the only substantive change in the ordinance is to add in some language that mirrors what was added to the the water impact fee. So if you look at I don't have a page number on here, but subsection E, subparagraph 2, this will allow the sewer connection charges to be increased by inflation every January 1st automatically. And the inflation factor we're recommending there is the 20 city construction cost index, which is sort of a good general indicator of increases in construction costs. So just to keep those fees current with increases in construction costs. And then the other changes in the ordinance just have to do with just recognizing and documenting that part of the rates includes this transfer for the city and village sewer collection system accounts, and also just clarifying who the conveyance charge applies to. So that the conveyance connection fee is just for new users connecting in the city itself. So happy to answer any questions anyone has on any of that.
Is this just for construction, or is this also for residents? on that annual increase of inflation?
That's a good question. That connection charge, that just applies to the connection charge, and that is only charged to new connections to the sewer system.
So not residents on a yearly basis?
No.
Or
Yeah, that's a one-time charge when someone connects. And I think I just want to make it real clear too, we're not recommending any changes in any of the rates that were approved for 2021 and 22. This is strictly just about documentation.
Do we have a motion?
Oh, suspend the rules for the
move to
ordinance.
suspend the rules.
Second.
Motion and second to suspend the rules. Roll call.
Morissette,
Yes.
Alms,
Yes.
DeZiel,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Atkins Hoggett,
Yes.
Hall.
Yes.
Motion's approved. Rules are suspended.
Move to adopt ordinance 3-21.
Second?
We got a motion and second to adopt. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on amending ordinance 242-1, section B, to establish a clear role for the appointed Village of North Hudson liaison on the Public Utility Commission.
So me again. There's been some unclarity between the current ordinance 242-1B and the 1983 water agreement that the City of Hudson and Village of North Hudson operate under. This amendment is intended to clarify and establish a clear role for the appointed Village of North Hudson liaison on the Public Utility Commission. So I know that there's a lot of information in there. I kind of gave everybody the 1983 agreement. I gave you the current ordinance, and then working with Kathy McKintrick on the suggested changes to ordinance 242-1B, just to clarify that role, on voting rights and what that role is that North Hudson actually has on the utility commission. So
I would like to see the North Hudson person have a vote.
What does that mean?
I want to have that representative be a voting member of the public utility.
Okay, very good.
Well, that's inconsistent with the contract, and
Then we should
also
change the contract.
under Wisconsin statute, the mayor and our ordinance, the mayor appoints members to the Public Utility Commission subject to approval of the council. Currently, it's the village that's appointing the representative to the commission, and that just is not consistent with our ordinance or with state statute. And the whole purpose in the contract was to have it be a liaison, a communication mechanism, not a voting member.
So why is this here?
This ordinance is,
Excuse me, excuse me, you do not at this point.
Why did you not disavow the individual who threatened our town earlier? He said we have not seen anything extreme yet, the best is yet to come. Why did you not disavow that statement?
Jeff?
Why? We have a right to know.
I can't comment on citizen comments. Sorry.
Well, you sure have no problem on your pages.
What?
on your pages, Facebook, social media, I don't know.
All right, so why is this here?
This is here to make it consistent both with the agreement, the 1983 agreement, where the North Hudson member was identified as a non-voting liaison. And
How many years have they been voting before this came up? Anybody?
I mean, I can't say exactly, Randy. I mean, at least for probably the 4 years, 4 of the 5 years that I've been here.
This needs to go back to committee and come back with a recommendation.
It already went to, it did go to the
commission.
I'm sorry, Randy, go ahead.
if we have to change the contract and the language to make them a voting member because they are purchasing water and should have every right to be involved with the decisions being made at that utility commission.
So again, I'm not understanding this. If we're not here to try to change the role, then why are we even discussing this?
Well, that's the purpose of the ordinance.
But you were saying that we can't. I mean, I'm in agreement with Randy. I think not only should they have a voting person on the council, I think they should have two. I think it should be proportional. So, but if we can't do that, then why is this here?
Yeah, what happens? Yeah, I guess I'm agreeing with you, Mayor. What if we don't do anything? What happens?
Okay, well, I'd like to say that, first of all, the Public Utilities Commission did recommend passing this ordinance. Second of all, I think that that should be part of the negotiating that will be going on going forward with North Hudson. So as they bring their proposal to us, I mean, we're still trying to handle either this consolidation or whether they are going to have a separate utility. So that should be part of the negotiations there. So I think that we should pass this now so that so that as we're negotiating this, then we can, that'll be a negotiation point.
Joyce, that's not a negotiation point, that's a blackmail. You're asking them this for that. That doesn't work. We're a community, we need to ask them and have them be a part of these decision-making process.
So how, I guess, okay, then how would we go about if in a closed session, if we are going to be negotiating in the future with the Village of North Hudson on any issue, it could be.
Yeah. Okay. So
how do we go about on closed session at that point?
Kip, hold on about that. We'll have to get, that's a separate item, I think. I mean, we'll have to get an opinion from Kathy how we deal with that. And if we need to go to closed session, all that, we'll have to deal with that. I guess my question for Kathy is so, okay, this is here, we kind of know why, but if we don't do anything while we work through all this, we know that we've got a canceled water agreement, soon to be canceled sewer agreement. We're going to start negotiating, trying to work this out with them. So in the meantime, if we don't make this change now and we just wait and try to figure this out as part of the whole big picture process that we're going through, does anything really change?
Well, first of all, the Public Utility Commission asked to have, this ordinance prepared because it was not working well, apparently, and it was not consistent with the contract. And just because it was done for 4 years doesn't change the contract. The Utility Commission and the city have hired a separate attorney for that whole process of dealing with the North Hudson City utility and how that's going to work. But the purpose was to make it consistent with the contract, and then the statutes require that the mayor appoints members to the commission subject to approval of the council. As it's been working, it's the village who appoints that member, and that's just not consistent with the state statute on public utility commissions.
But I guess what I'm saying is, I get that. I mean, I know why maybe I should rephrase. I know why we're doing it to clean this up. Trust me, I know why we're doing this. But what I'm saying is that if we have some concern with council members about now versus why don't we just work this out as we try to work through this whole big process, what would happen if we don't do anything? Do we basically just continue as is, or?
Well, I have to say that it makes it difficult. You're in a process of negotiation to meet in closed session to discuss negotiating strategy when you're in a competitive bargaining situation with the Village of North Hudson.
And this would address that.
This would address that, yes.
Okay, thank you, Kip, and I apologize for cutting you off. I didn't realize that this would address that. So now I got where you're going with it, Kip, so sorry about that.
I'm not understanding this. I'm still not understanding what the difference is between the new language and the old language. You're just stating specifically that they're not going to be a member of the Public Utility Commission, but the old language never said they were.
They're not going to be a voting member because they have been voting.
Well, but the old language says that they shall not have any voting rights.
No. What are you looking at? Hold on. The new language says they don't have any voting rights. The old language said they do.
I'm looking at under the
No, it doesn't say that they do. I mean,
right here,
the 1983 agreement, which we have with them, it says the village shall designate one or more people to serve as liaison with the utility. Such village representatives shall be entitled to attend and be heard at utility meetings, but shall not have any voting rights. So that's the 83 agreement. The current ordinance, which is currently on the books, states one member of the utility commission shall be a representative of the village of North Hudson. So that's where the discrepancy is coming in.
Okay.
The 83 agreement says that they don't have any voting rights. The current ordinance says that one member of the utility commission shall be a representative. Well, what does representative mean?
Right, you're right.
So that's what we're trying to clarify with the new ordinance suggestion, saying that the village of North Hudson may designate one or more person to serve as a representative of the village of North Hudson and be a liaison between North Hudson and the Public Utility Commission. The North Hudson representative may attend and be heard at all public meetings of the Public Utility Commission, but shall not be a member of the Public Utility Commission and shall not have any voting rights. And getting back to if we do closed session, the Village of North Hudson liaison is entitled to attend public meetings, but as soon as we go into closed session, which we anticipate going into quite heavily probably in the next in the next year here, that the liaison from North Hudson would not be allowed into that closed session. At this point, we don't have, according to Kathy, she didn't think that we could not have them there.
It's not clear. That's the purpose for clarifying that they are not a member of the commission. They are representative, a liaison, and that's taken directly from the 1983 contract.
All right, so at some point, I would like to discuss giving them membership, making them full members of the commission. And when and where, how do we do that?
With voting rights, Rich?
Yeah, oh yeah.
Well, that's going to be part of this whole conversation of what's going to happen
Yes.
here. As we move forward with the water agreement and then ultimately the sewer agreement as well. But I think the part of this that's going to be an issue still as we move forward is the reason that we're doing all this is that we have received the legal opinion from our attorney that we can't continue to operate as we are.
All right.
We can't continue to have this odd mixed arrangement as we discussed at that joint meeting that we had with them. So moving forward, I think this will probably moot at some point because the most viable path is going to be consolidation. And at that point, when we consolidate and just take over, instead of them owning and we operating whatever, we just consolidate with them. When we consolidate, I assume that'll be part of that conversation is, okay, so now we're consolidating. Who is appointed to the PUC? And my guess would be is at that point, that's when we can talk about that with our consolidated utility, we should have 2 representatives from North Hudson or whatever. I would assume that can be part of that process when we set it up.
All right. Sounds good. I apologize. Is there a motion?
Move to suspend the rules.
Second.
We got a motion, second to suspend the rules. Roll call.
Morissette,
No, I'm not understanding what we're doing yet.
Alms,
Yes.
DeZiel,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Atkins Hoggett,
Yes.
Hall.
Yes.
Motion's approved, rules are suspended.
Move to adopt ordinance 2-21.
Second.
Got a motion and a second to approve. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Motion's approved. Discussion and possible action on motion to convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.
Mayor, can I make a quick, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Mayor, but can I make a request? When we do public comments for the minutes, we always get full names and addresses. And then we had Brandon comment, but we never got his last name nor an address. And for the minutes, I'd like to get that. Can I request that Brandon please provide his last name and address for Becky?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is Brandon still on? I see that it looks like he's there.
Is he?
Okay.
All right. Discussion and possible action on motion to convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin statute 19.85 sub 1 sub G to confer with legal counsel for the governmental body relating to litigation in which the governing body is likely to become involved relating to the city's sign ordinance. Do we want to do these at the same time?
Kathy, that'd be my request. Can we go into closed session for both? Because we're not going to take any action on the first one, so we don't need to reconvene.
Yep. Discussion and possible action to convene into closed session pursuant to A.12 Wisconsin statute 1985 sub 1 sub C to consider performance evaluation data or date and compensation relating to the city administrator. Do we have a motion?
Move to go into closed session.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to go into closed session. All those in favor?
Roll call.
Oh, I'm sorry. Roll call.
Morissette,
Yes.
Alms,
Yes.
DeZiel,
Yes.
Weber,
Yes.
Atkins Hoggett,
Yes.
Hall.
Yes.
Motion's approved. We will go into closed session. I think you all have, you guys explain how the technological stuff
Feel
works.
free to log out and then log back in. I'll go quick start the other one. So log into the link I sent you earlier.
Mr. Mayor,
Yep.
can I just do a quick personal point of privilege?
Well, we're in closed session right now, Paul.
Okay.
We have a motion. Can you hear me? Can't hear me.
Hey again, Rich.
Can't hear you very good. Well,
Can you hear me? But is it better?
Yeah.
I was too far away from the mic. I apologize. All right, so we're back in open session. Do we have a motion?
sorry, I'm a little confused. Do we need to say something about the first item at all?
No.
Oh,
Okay. So coming out of, I would like to move that our city administrator, Aaron Reeves, be promoted to the next pay step because he had passed his review from administration with flying colors.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, a second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Paul, you had before you wanted to do a point of
Yes,
privilege?
sorry about that. I did that the wrong time. I had a point of personal privilege. I just want to take a minute to, I think somebody else's audio is on there. Sorry. Yeah, I just want to take a moment to say that, and these are spontaneous. I had a prepared statement, but I've tossed it out based on tonight. So we're just at a really difficult time in our country's history. And we have seen some unprecedented things like the attack on the Capitol a week and a half ago. And I want to just put out an invitation and an appeal for calm. I want to say that I know that some people are hurting and the inauguration is tomorrow. But I really want to bring us together as a community and say that really think before we act, both as citizens and political leaders. I would make an appeal for lowering the temperature and being calm. I really think we're a community that needs to move forward together. I think in the context of the bigger kind of strife we're going through on a lot of different fronts, that is not going to be easy. But I'm going to pledge as a council member that I'm here to respect your opinion, regardless of your political views. And that I think all of our council members are here to work with you in the future. So please understand that respectful dialogue is, I think, the way to move us forward as a city and as a nation. And I just really appeal for calm. And hopefully we can get through, tomorrow, and hopefully we can get on into the future together through some very challenging times. So it's just a thought. It's just an appeal from my heart. And I really want to work with whoever's out there, maybe that may be feeling tempted to move in other directions. We're a community, and we need to believe in each other, and we need to talk to each other, and we need to listen to each other. So please take that to heart. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. All right. Do we have a motion?
I have one comment before we go there. I just wanted to mention that I did see the video that our mayor put out, and I just wanted to congratulate him. I'm impressed with his leadership in what he talked and what he spoke about. I think it's exactly what our community needs to hear, and I think our community should take what he had said in that video at face value, because we do need to listen to each other to communicate. So I know that's kind of echoing what Paul said too, but I guess when we sit here as nonpartisan seat members, and I know that we all are giving to our community and really working hard to represent the people that live in our community, in the best hopes of putting all politics aside, and at a time that politics are just oozing into our community. I just hope and pray that we all focus on being together as a community and not be divisive. So.
Thank you, Bill. I appreciate that.
I'll just say, there's verbal or anything other than respect for each other is all that we should be doing. Respect each other's opinions. Verbal or any violence otherwise is no place anywhere.
Okay. All right. Thank you guys for that. Do we have a motion?
Move to adjourn.
Second.
Motion second to adjourn. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's approved. We stand adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.